evening, America, and good afternoon, Australia. Welcome back to Radio Toni, and this is the Everyday Business Show. Listening live online is my gorgeous Philippines VA, Peo, and he has all the information you need to connect with us on the show and our amazing guest for today. Don't forget, if you miss anything from today's show, jump on to radiotoni.com where you'll find all the information from today's show. And if you're listening live, thank you for listening live and welcome to the show. Today's guest is an international speaker, author, facilitation and podcast host, Kerryn Vaughn. In a former life, Kerryn was living a rock star life, partying, performing for screaming fans, staying out all night, and basically believing she was the center of the universe. She still is the center of the universe. However, she is drawn to do different things now. Kerryn says at 35, her life was carefree, selfish, and somewhat reckless. She was performing at a leisure centre in the suburbs and lapping up all the admiration. She had to take a break and got a phone call, and that call would change her life forever. Kerryn did everything in her power to keep her sister alive, but she failed. That event significantly changed her life, and Kerryn was forced to think outside herself and about the power she had to help others instead of putting all her energy into her own selfishness. She discovered how important and how healing a life with meaning could be. Since 2003, Kerryn has been on a mission to build on this meaningfulness and has over the years propelled herself upward to make a better life for herself and others, and ultimately the planet. In 2014, Kerryn wrote the award-winning book, Magnificent Kids, which showcases 23 little superheroes who started world-changing projects before the age of 18. Some were as young as 7. In a strange but wonderful turn of events, it was this book that led Kerryn on to found One Planet Classrooms in 2015. One Planet Classrooms is a not-for-profit which supports schools and communities in Africa with projects such as clean water solutions and sustainability projects, women's empowerment and adult education programs, feminine hygiene solutions, as well as coordinating a sponsorship program that provides education for over 180 children. In 2018, Kerryn became wildly accountable after making a pledge to launch a female-focused initiative in front of 300 women at an International Women's Day event. No backing out of that one. And she co-founded Girls with Hammers, which hosts conferences and workshops aimed at empowering women. In 2019, Kerryn released her book, Get Off the Bench, which is about getting your project or your idea out of your head onto paper and into action. Why? Because so many people that Kerryn was talking to had brilliant ideas, but just didn't know where to get started. In 2020, Kerryn launched the Get Off Your Bench podcast as a way of reaching and inspiring more people to kickstart their idea. Kerryn's guests share the journey of how they got to where they are today, and they dig deep into what they have built in their lives and the challenges and wins they have encountered along the way. So for Kerryn to have had so many impactful twists and turns, good and bad, she has gathered a very large bucket of tools and lessons. Welcome to the show, Kerryn.
Wow, thank you so much, Toni. Great to be here. You made me a bit teary with that introduction.
Oh, Kerryn, I've been looking forward to this show, which we've entitled Get Off the Bench. But let's go back and start at the beginning. Let's talk about that phone call, what was happening in your life, what the message was, and how it caused you to react in that moment, because it was a life-changing point in your life, wasn't it?
Oh, it certainly was. And like you said, I was just having the time of my life and thinking that I was the only person in the world and all that mattered. And, you know, I was playing a gig and I was just, lapping it up, you know, and then I saw a missed call from my sister. So I went and rang her back. This is not the sister that that we're talking about, but another sister, and she says, hey, bad news, Carolyn's got cancer. And in that moment, I didn't see the C word for cancer, which some people do survive. I just saw the D word for death. And, I was completely numb. I went onto autopilot. I was like, everything I built this foundation on just crashed, and I'm gonna start crying, but that's okay because it's quite a vulnerable. I want this to be real, and she, her and I were best friends, so it was a really difficult situation, really difficult, but we moved through it, and
Kerryn, did you have to go back on to stage after that phone call, or had you finished the gig, or?
I know I was halfway through, and I'm one of these people that I will continue my commitments to no matter what's happened, and went on to stage many times with things in the background and sort of turn them off. So I had to go back on and pretend to turn it off, and it was all good until I sang "Knocking on Heaven's Door," and then that was the end of me. That was like, but I still pushed through it, and got to the end, and I remember driving home just completely. I just saw death. That was all I saw, and negative as that sounds, I really struggled to push my way through that, but we did, moved through it.
Can we talk a little bit about your sister's journey? What sort of cancer? What happened in that time? And obviously, she succumbed to her battle. And that must have been incredibly traumatic for you and the family.
Mm-hmm. She was 28 when she got, the diagnosis of breast cancer. And, she kept saying, oh, don't worry, I'll get through it. But she was such a tough nut, So it was a 5-year battle. She tried and tried. She ended up with chemo, radiation, all that sort of stuff. She was so tough. She used to drive herself to Melbourne, an hour and a half, and have radiation, drive herself home again, because she'd refused to ask anybody to help, which was stupid. But she was a nugget, I can tell you. But anyway, we had a family holiday years before that in Hawaii, and I was going to Hawaii in 2002, and she said, oh, I want to come. And so I took her, and she wasn't right. We got off the plane and she was a bit sort of sluggish, had a headache, and this went on for a week. She kept saying, I've just got a headache, go and get me some tablets. And in the end, I said, after a week, I said, that's it. I'm taking you to a doctor, because she kept refusing. Anyway, as it turned out, she'd had a brain bleed on the plane. And what we didn't know is that she had, cancer in her brain, which we didn't know that. And so she had a scan in Hawaii, and it was kind of like, well, I was over there with her and had to make, some very, very hard decisions. The decision was, she's going to die. Do we let her die here? Do we try and do life-saving surgery and maybe it'll work? Do we put her in palliative care in Hawaii? What do we do? So I chose the operation, rang a quick phone call home, and the surgery was probably she was going to die on the table, but she didn't. She made it through. It was a real struggle. The family flew over with the help of people in my local town in Warragul. They raised so much money to bring my family to Hawaii. And then, the surgeon was just incredible. And he says, I've got a friend who's a radiologist, and he said, he can do radiology and you can get her home to Australia, because that's what she wanted. He said, but it will fry her brain completely. So you need to make a choice. So we made that choice, and gave her brain damage, and we got her home, because that's all she wanted to do was get home. And anyway, she died a few months later at home, but she somehow made it. And she kept talking to me on the way home on the plane. Do you see that blue angel? Isn't he beautiful? And I kept thinking, oh, this is the most hellish aeroplane flight. But anyway, she made it. She, did die a few months later. She got through Christmas, and she left 2 twin boys, 7, and a little girl, 4. And, that was the hardest part, I think. And, yeah, that was the hardest part, with the kids. But
Yeah.
so, and I tried to save her, I was like,
Yes.
I'm the
Yes.
oldest in the family. I have to save her. And, I employed the services of witch doctors, you name it. I
Yeah.
did everything. And at the end of the day, I saw myself as a failure, because I didn't save her life. And I should have. I'm the oldest. And,
Yes.
but that
Kerryn,
was,
what is it about that oldest child that causes us to think that we have to be the savior of the family, that we have to be the protector of the family, and that we have to save the family? I clearly identify that as the oldest in my family, and I understand when you saying that there's something internal in a lot of elder children that have that compulsion to save and save the others in their family. So, oh gosh, how did you work through that, Kerryn?
and I don't do that anymore. I've decided, no, it's everybody's
Yes.
journey and they can do what they want.
Yes.
And I need to step back. But how I dealt with it was, I got offered it. I decided to move back from the city to our hometown, and believe it or not, she died the next day. So, the time was impeccable. But I had a really great job offer, and I decided, no, I'm not going to take that. It was like back then, this was 18 years ago, and it was $800 a week. I thought it was a great offer, but I ended up working in a nursery for $200 a week, because I felt like, I could hide behind the plants, and no one could find me. I could have my grief behind the plants. And that didn't work at all. The nursery owner was an absolute drag, and I ended up locking her in a shed. But I know she survived, because I saw her in Coles 2 days later. But anyway, so I ended up leaving that. But about a year, the next year, the following year, a few local people in the town invited me to join the Relay for Life, which is a cancer council walkathon kind of thing, and asked me would I like to be on the committee. So I sort of, over the way I am, I overextended myself and took on 3 roles, and activities, entertainment and ceremonies. And in that moment, in doing that, and when the event came together and I saw what I'd achieved and what everybody was doing and how everybody felt, it occurred to me then really strongly that, hey, this feels great. When you extend yourself beyond yourself and you help other people, helping my sister was a natural, but to extend myself way further for no gain to myself, that really opened my eyes. And I can't, that was the true sense of altruism, and I felt amazing, not because I felt like, wow, look at me, I'm so fantastic, but to see people feel good. So that was the turning point, and I did that for a few years, and it really made a difference to me.
Do you think that if your sister looking down would be really proud of that turning point in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know she's looking down because, whenever it's Christmas or Easter or birthdays, she appears, it just in the form of, we'll find a C, you're just written somewhere, and, the amazing things. She typed a C into our family's messenger chat the other day. And, there's just always things. She died at 5:55, and in the afternoon. And her and I always had this thing, 555, we'd ring each up, like the American TV shows, 555.
Yes.
And she died right on 5:55, and so there's so many synergies. She died on the 1st to the 2nd of the 3rd, 1, 2, 3, 555. Like, there was just so many amazing things. So she keeps coming through as 555 all the time, and I just say, hey, Cal, and I just know she's there. So she'd be proud.
Yeah. Because there is that strongly held belief, I believe with you, Kerryn, that our human existence is just part, that our soul lives on for forever, and that soul is the thing that is unconditional love and support and happiness for you and whatever you're doing, and to know that she's still popping in from time to time to say, go Kerryn, go Kerryn. It must be just the loveliest feeling. And in doing what you do now and dedicating so much of your life to the help of others, one of the other points in your journey was around that time that you started thinking about the book Magnificent Kids. What prompted you to write the book Magnificent Kids?
Yeah, I started working for TAFE, teaching at TAFE for people with disabilities, not teaching people to work with people with disabilities. And I also taught VCAL for a while. And during the disability stuff, I became a specialist in autism and behaviour, and I was working in a lot of schools, helping people, teachers, and so what do we need to do with the behaviour management? But they kept saying, can you fix these kids? And I kept saying, it's not the kids, it's the environment. We're looking at kids wrong, spend too much time focusing on negative behavior. What we need to be doing is focusing on the strengths, and at the same time, I was also a big animal rights, and still am a very big animal rights advocate. And I was talking to adults about the cruelty that we subject upon animals, and it was kind of like just hitting brains and not making sense. But what I realized is that when we talk to kids about it, they're our hope for the future. So those two aspects, I guess, made me write the book Magnificent Kids. I wanted to highlight kids around the world that were doing amazing things in world-changing projects. And just a couple of them, like Jack Andraker, he asked 100 labs if he could use some space to test his pancreatic strip because a friend of his family friend died of pancreatic cancer. Well, he's developed a little strip that costs 1 cent that is more accurate than the other testing. And the 100th lab said, yes, he can. He's gone on to do incredible things. Clover Hogan is another kid. She was she did a film on Barwa, which is a Bali rescue centre that I worked at too, so that attracted me. Well, now she runs Force of Nature in London, addressing youth ecophobia, and she's dealing with the biggest names in the world. So that's just so much evidence that you give kids a go. You highlight their strengths, you focus on their strengths. They're going to make a massive difference. So that really, I'm so glad. I still talk to the kids in that book and still friends with a lot of them, and amazing.
I have to agree with you, Kerryn. There's something my two favourite interviews in 2020 were with a 15-year-old inspirational speaker and an 18-year-old eco warrior that was managing 150 conservation projects across the planet in COVID whilst trying to study for year 12.
Wow.
It blew my mind. And I so agree with you about the idea of empowering our kids and picking the gold that is already in them and allowing them to spread their wings and create magic. And I wish that we could do that for every single child on the planet, because we would change humanity and we would change the world. In talking about kids with autism, I've found that in lots of my conversations, there's always something uniquely, beautifully special about any child or adult with autism. They, in effect, have some sort of superpower. And if we could highlight that superpower with each of those individuals, again, we would create magic across the planet. Why do you think it's still hard for people to tackle working with autism, thinking about autism? What is it that holds people back from embracing autism as being just another diagnosis that you can work with and create magic from?
Look, I think it's just a lack of understanding. There's a number of things. I used to teach that there's men and women and we're completely different. We're completely different, yet we've worked out a way to work together. Well, let's add another brain
Yes.
in because it's just a different wiring. And let's have a three-way, conversation about all different angles and different perspectives. The other
Yes.
thing I think is that it's an invisible disability. With a
Yep.
person with Down syndrome, you can clearly see that they have a disability and we make allowances, but when a person with autism doesn't look like they
There's
have a
no.
disability, and so when they do something quirky, we're very quick to judge and think, oh, what's wrong with that
I know.
person? And the other thing is
I
too, we've
know.
become so good at talking social rubbish. We waffle on about rubbish so much, and people with autism, they just want black and white. Let's get to the point.
Yep.
None of this social rubbish. And we just don't know how to do that. We don't know how to manage having a very direct conversation without all the fluff. And I kind of think, wow, imagine if more of us were like that. We just have black and white conversations. I know it can't work in every situation, but boy, get rid of that gray fluff and just get to the point, get on with life, and make a difference. Wow, what a world. But that's my thoughts. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I am particularly passionate about judgment, having suffered so much judgment my whole life, that if there's one thing I'd like to change is to encourage people to stop themselves in that moment when they recognize that they're judging someone. And I know that I do it myself, but I've actually gotten very good at going, whoa, wait a bit, Tone, that's a bit, how dare you consider that your thoughts on this, that matter, whatever, are correct. How dare you judge someone without knowing the complete understanding? And even then, you still shouldn't judge. I'm passionate about people judging others because there should never be judgment. There should only be a position of love and understanding. And again, just that small thing, if we were able to stop humanity judging each other or someone thinking that they're better than someone else, that we're all equal, again, what could we create in the future for our grandchildren, Kerryn?
Yep.
That whole idea of just stop judging. Look at that beautiful child that's been diagnosed with autism, recognize their own and unique superpower and focus on that. Don't focus on the other stuff.
Yep.
It sounds so easy, I know, but lots of people out there just won't even give it a go, won't even go there. Kerryn, what did you discover about yourself in working with special needs, disability and autism?
I learned that I was kinder and more compassionate deep down than I actually thought I was, that I knew I was. I realized that I think one thing that really came to the forefront was that my acknowledgement, my realization that I have this gift that really makes people feel safe. I would never have thought that, but that is such a gift. And I noticed that all people with autism just sort of came to me, they were attracted to me and they just was safe. It didn't matter what I said, they were just there. And I think that's such a gift, and if it took someone with autism to bring that out in me, then I'll be grateful for the rest of my life. It's because I use that everywhere, and not intentionally. Just,
Again, those special superpowers that make our personalities unique. I know that it took me a long time to discover those, but then when you discover it and start to think, okay, and then start to know, it's the knowing that changes things, isn't it? You might have a sneaky feeling, a few people have told me that, gosh, I feel safe, or I feel I can talk to you about anything, but then there's the knowing, and the knowing, and the knowing, no, I know that I create safe spaces for people to be around, and that changes everything, because then it doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter what criticism is directed at you. You know, without a shadow of a doubt, that that's one of your superpowers. And each of us has lots, don't we?
Yeah.
It's just a
Yes,
matter of
we do.
working out what they are.
And I think the problem is that we feel like we're full of ourselves if we accept these great things. You know, we're too busy sort of deflecting and saying, no, that's just luck. But we've got to stop that, because there's enough people.
Recognize.
Yeah, well, there's enough people judging us and cutting us down and everything else out there. We just stop cutting ourselves down. I've got a big thing about being authentic, whether people like it or not. They can take me, they can leave me. And at the end of the day, I don't care. I would much rather have friends than not have friends. But I remember saying years ago to somebody who asked me to cheat for her, and I said, no, I'm here to make a difference, not to make friends. And I've stood by that. And I hope I do make friends on the way, and building relationships is so important to me. But I will never sell my soul to build a relationship. Never. But
Kerryn, I know that I talk to probably more Americans than I do Australians. So when I have an Australian on the show, I like to talk about that tall poppy syndrome that is prevalent in Australian society. And it isn't apparent in American society as much as it is in Australia, where someone who's doing well, we like to disparage and bring them down and take them down a peg or two. And that is not good for humans. It's not a good place to come from, and it's not a good thing to do, and we need to stop it.
Yeah. We do, absolutely. You're okay while you're the girl next door or the boy next door, and as soon as you make it to Hollywood or you make it somewhere else, it's kind of like everybody criticizes. And I think that you just have to keep on your path, stay in your own lane, do your thing, and because people need you. And if you succumb to tall poppy syndrome, you're doing an injustice to the world. People miss out. So I think we each have to be strong and say, well, you can say whatever you like, but I'm on my path and I'm staying on it.
That's right. Yeah. Again, it comes back to that knowing and that clarity around. And I think that's a superpower of women who reach a certain age. So I'm quite obviously middle-aged now, but I wouldn't trade the wisdom that I have in my mid-50s for anything, because it's hard won and it's precious, and that knowing that you know what you know is a great shield against a toxic world at times. Kerryn, I wanted to also talk to you about the founding of a not-for-profit organisation, because I know from talking to many people that this is no mean feat. What was the catalyst for the non-for-profit organisation, and tell us a little bit about its journey, because it's pretty fascinating.
It came as a result of Magnificent Kids, the book. I had a book launch, and I took a photo with a friend with the book, and she had a friend in Africa, in Guinea, and he said on Facebook, oh, I love that, where can I get that book? So I sent it to him, and then he says, he started messaging me, I want to start a Magnificent class. And I said, great. And he said, will you Skype with my kids? I said, yeah. And then I said, why don't we get a couple of the kids in the book to Skype with you? Your class. Oh yeah, that would be fantastic. And then I jumped in feet first, because I always do that. Sometimes I make a mess of it. This time I made a mess of it. So I jumped in feet first, and I said, well, why don't we get your class to Skype with a class in Australia, and you can learn about each other, and we can break down some boundaries, because I don't believe in all these borders around the world where we're one people, one planet, one love. And I thought, wow, if they can Skype together. So then I put a thing on Facebook, hey, does anyone have a laptop? The next thing, I've got 30 laptops, and I thought, oh hell, what am I going to do? So I thought, I better start a business. So because that's all I knew. So I started One Planet Classrooms, and I set it up as a business. And anyway, and then within a week, another guy in Uganda, connected with me. I told him about it, and he said, oh, I know heaps of schools. Well, within 2 weeks of me coming up with this business idea to Skype between classes, I had 45 classes, 45 schools in Africa, in Uganda, that wanted to join. And it was kind of like, and then I was like, then the crux hit, and I spent so many months working out how am I going to get laptops to Africa, because I couldn't, because you can't send them in the post because of the lithium batteries. Then I had to wait for Rotary to be sending a container over. Anyway, we finally got them to Kenya, and we had to do something illegal to get them into Uganda. So it wasn't fantastic, but then the stupidness of this is that took, I don't know, several months, maybe 8 months. But in that whole time, I never, ever, ever stopped to look at time zones. And, the kids in Africa were in bed, and the kids in Australia were awake. So it was a complete bloody failure. But even worse, I sent laptops to a country where 95% of them don't even have power. So I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, it sent me on a journey. And what happened here was, once I realized this is a mess, it's a failure. But 20 schools had laptops, and they had to take them into town to drip charge them all day. And it was just, When I was talking to all these teachers, what I found out was that the girls are the ones that go fetch water. And some of them can be, only 3 years old, 2 years old. And they're walking kilometres with great big jerry cans. And what's happening is that men are waiting along the path and sexually assaulting them. And even 3-year-olds being raped, and teenage girls were swapping sex for sanitary items so that they could stay in school, because if they don't stay in school, they have to be married, at 11, 12.
Yes.
I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So my choice was then, talk about pivoting, my choice was, do I run with my tail between my legs and say, I'm a failure, that was stupid, or do I say, well, now that I have access to on the ground people, do I just start seeing a solution to that? And so what I started doing was looking at water tanks and, how do we put water tanks into schools so that the girls don't have to walk? And because there's no shortage of water in Uganda, there's a shortage of infrastructure, so if we could harvest the water. And so I started putting water tanks into schools, and then, things like solar systems, because the kids in P7, which is the highest primary, if they don't pass, they can't get to secondary, the girls get married. So we put solar systems in, so they sleep in the classroom for 3 weeks with power, just so that they can get, so they pass. And then we started setting up women's empowerment projects and, adult education, pioneering that. And we've got a student sponsorship program. It kind of just, what a blessing to fail. I love telling that story because we're so scared to fail. But this has saved thousands of lives and empowered because it fell through.
This is what happened. I was talking to one of my guests earlier this morning about the power of yes in our lives. And it is essentially just saying yes without buying into what the outcome may be. Because if you'd bought into that outcome that this is absolutely what I'm going to do, this is only what I'm going to do, then you wouldn't have gone on to create this wonderful organisation that does so much more than just connect classrooms. So the organisation is still going, Kerryn, and you're still passionately involved?
Yeah, it is going. It's COVID has certainly put a kibosh on it a bit for the last year. They've been in lockdown too, but it's it is still going. It's all volunteer. So there's 5 of us on the committee, and and I still run it, and it's so we don't get paid. So it can become quite stressful at times when you're trying to do other work and you've got to squeeze it in. Right now, I'm needing to pay all the sponsorships, and that's hours and hours and hours on end. But it is still going, just no projects in the last 12 months. But it's still sitting there.
It will come back again, I'm sure, Kerryn. The gift of COVID is that ability that's made everyone stop, rethink, and redirect how their lives might be in the future, which has been the biggest blessing, I guess, to come out of COVID, if you're thinking about blessings versus all the rubbish that has gone on with it. Kerryn, I know you're passionate about advocating for women across the world, and this triggered a new challenge for you, didn't it? Can you tell the audience about that?
It did. It was, as if I don't have enough to do. I was at an
Yeah.
international, I was at an International Women's Day event, and there was, I think it was Press for Progress, the hashtag, and it was 2018. There were all these cards on the table, and it was kind of like, I will stand up for women. I will speak out for women. I will. And I thought, these are really, I won't say lame, but I thought, well, I'm already doing that. What's a challenge for me? Well, then I found this card and it was fantastic.
Yes.
I have to read it. It's right here on my wall. It says, I will launch a purposeful female-focused initiative. Well, I got up on the stage in front of 300 women and I held this card up and said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And then I got down off the stage and thought, I've done it again. What am I going to do? But in the year before that, I'd been talking about, doing Girls with Hammers, but I kind of looked at it as teenage girls in school, challenging the stereotypes and not sexualizing themselves and, really standing in their power. And I went home, my partner says, well, I guess it's time for Girls with Hammers, isn't it? And I said, well, it is. Didn't work so well in the schools. The teenagers are kind of like, nah, I don't really need to be told this because we're interested in boys. But what we discovered is a real gap for women, in between 45 and 65. The kids are left home. They've spent their life looking after the kids, looking after the husband, and then they're suddenly lost. And so we decided to do conferences. We did our first conference in 2000, only a few months after that. I think I was bloody crazy, but I did it. We did it. It's not just me. There's two of us. And, we brought together 150 women and they had the best day of their life. And so, and we've had so many people say to us, I've never experienced a day like this. I felt like it was all about me. I have met so many other wonderful women. I'm not alone. These stories are the same as mine, and so we have speakers that share stories, and it's growing year by year. Last year we had to can it because, but now we're having another one, our third one in a few weeks' time, and it's just building and building and building, and everybody loves it, and we love it because you see so many women step into their power and they can just be them for the day, without any other ties around their feet, and it is fabulous. So I love it and just love
Kerryn,
it.
Tell us about the structure of the Girls with Hammers conferences. Besides speakers, what else do you do on those days?
Yeah, so we just have 5 or 6 speakers, and then we also have so many giveaways. Like we have all these local businesses that give donations, and we give them away all day. So we give away so far. I think for this conference we've got about 35 giveaways. So it just goes on and on and on. But the other thing we do is that it's always funny. There's always fun. There's tears. There's fun. Lots of laughter.
Yes.
We have lunch, of course, so everyone connects. But one of the other things we do is we always choose a charity, and it's never mine. It's never at One Plant Classrooms, but we give to something that we're passionate. So this year it's Footprints Foundation, which is a local organisation that supports families who have somebody going through cancer. So. And last year it was the Olivia Newton-John Foundation last time, and the one before that was Sea Shepherd, because we're big on animal activity. So, so it's a feel-good day all around. Everybody wins, and that's just marvelous.
Listen, Kerryn, what's the big vision for Girls with Hammer? Tell us about that big vision.
Ideally, we're only operating in Gippsland at the moment. We want to move to all the capital cities in Australia, and then we want to be able to bring it internationally. We did have some talks in Singapore 2 years ago. That hasn't eventuated because of the situation, but and the person we're talking to moved on. But we would like to take it internationally, and we're also looking at experiential retreats. So we have a program called Write Your Next Chapter, where women can, sit down and say, well, what do I want for my future? And we want to do it through building toilets and building houses, and that in Cambodia and stuff like that. We work with Heartfleet's Foundation in Cambodia. And so, we'd like to do that. where people have an experience for growth, you know, and a really
Yeah,
profound catalyst to say, hey, my life is worth something. I matter. I can make
absolutely.
a difference.
Yes.
You know, and that's our big vision. Maybe it's not big enough, but that'll do for now. I'm exhausted.
Now we just need to get you back up on stage, and there'll be something that comes out of Kerryn around Girls with Hammers just because you think of it
Yeah.
in that exact moment.
Yes.
So Girls with Hammers is ramping up again, and it again is specifically for women 45 to 65. Have I got that age right?
Yeah, well, that's what we say is the demographic, but we get
Yeah,
kids there. We get teenagers. They're
yeah,
13. You know, one
yeah,
teenager came 2 years ago. She said her life changed significantly. She came out of the closet, got picked on, bullied at school, and then she left
yeah,
that. She stood up at that conference, said to her mum, "You know what? I don't care about them anymore. I, I'm going to follow these women, and I'm strong, and I'm going to stand in my
yes.
power." And to have a 13-year-old say that, that's
What a gift.
yep, yep. If that's all we could
That would
bring from
be,
one conference, yeah,
yeah. If we could give that gift to every 13-year-old girl who felt that confident to stand up
yep,
and stand in their own unique power, again, we would change the world.
we would.
Kerryn, the next book was that you wrote was called Get Off the Bench. And I love, again, Kerryn's wisdom behind this book. Can you tell the audience about Get Off the Bench?
Get Off the Bench started because I was talking at a conference, and the guy running it, Matt, great guy, says, "Can you run a workshop at the conference?" And I said, "What about?" And he says, "Starting projects." And I said, "Why? I don't know
Yes.
anything about starting projects." And he looked at me like, "Are you
Yeah, right.
mad?"
He didn't believe you, did he?
No. So I did the workshop, and I promised the people I'd send them. I said, "Look, there's a whole lot of other things I want to tell you. I'll do a PDF. Give me your email, and I'll send it to you." So I came home and started writing the PDF, and within 4 weeks, I'd written a whole book. And I thought, "Wow, this is fantastic. Well, here's a second book." You know, it was. But the whole idea of it's kind of like this is how I work. You know, it's a
Yeah.
guide to helping people to kickstart their ideas. You know, it could be a community
Yes.
project or a side hustle, or it could just be a personal goal. So all the way it
Yeah.
goes through it. You know, what's your idea? What's your vision? What's your why? What's the thing that's driving you to do it? Because that's the most important.
Yeah.
What things are in your way? How are we going to get around them? How do we break this down so it's manageable? Are there, what's the problem you're solving? If it's a business or a community project, it just, and it looks at
Hmm.
all the legal stuff. Not that I can. You got to remember it's written for Australia, but I've tried to make it
Yes.
so that it's for international people. I've said,
International.
look this up in your country, that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's selling way more international copies than it is Australian copies, but
Yes.
it's I just love it because, and so many people. I've also made it small, like it's it's
Yes, it
it's
is. It's just
it's
perfect.
little. I can't do it with this thing. It's little, and it's written for like 15-year-old level, so that you
Could
can
pick
just
it up.
breeze through it. And so many people have told me they've read it and they've kickstarted their project, and I couldn't be happier.
How
If
cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So for the audience, we've got links to Kerryn's books in the live chat, but also we've got links to Kerryn's books on radiotony.com. And if you go to kerrynvaughn.com, it's .com, isn't it?
Yep.
You'll also find the links to all of her books, upcoming workshops, and the information about Girls with Hammers. So the next Girls with Hammers conference is in Victoria in a couple of weeks, did you say, Kerryn?
It is. It's on the 6th of May in Gippsland in
Yes.
Victoria, in Australia. Yeah.
Yep. And you've got information about that on the website as well, Kerryn?
Absolutely. On girlswithhammers.com.au. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I love when I was putting together the intro for the show today, and I got the logo for Girls with Hammers, I immediately thought, I can't do that logo without actually having a picture of a girl with a hammer. And I was really happy with the one I found because it's such a dynamic
Yeah.
logo. It's really great. Now,
Yeah.
Kerryn, we are getting towards the end of the interview, but I wanted to ask you about some of the big things that you think you might want to accomplish in the future. What does that
Yeah.
look like for Kerryn?
Wow, I'm going to tell you my grand plan is to buy
Yes, please.
is to buy land all around the world to create sanctuaries, to protect wild animals. I had that on my wall for many years in my other house. I took it off when I moved here, and I actually gave up on that plan, thinking that it's too big. But I've been talking to people just recently who are saying no. I actually think that's attainable. So that's my goal. I had a goal five at 55, so that I'd have $5 million when I was 55, and the interest would buy land in a country every single year. But I didn't achieve it, but I'm okay with failure, so I'll work my way around that. That's my big thing.
Look what happened. Look what happened out of the other failure. I wouldn't call that exactly failure.
No, exactly. I'm sure it'll happen. But I want to do a lot more keynotes. I was traveling internationally doing keynotes and talking about things like, creating your future, starting now, unlocking your genius, that sort of stuff. So I want to do a lot more of that. But now Zoom's come, I can do it via that. I also do workshops for leaders, to position themselves as leaders instead of waiting for those formal positions to become available. Let's just, hey, if there's a gap, you step into that. So I can't wait to do more of those, and particularly internationally. I'm doing a lot of work around the world with climate change groups and universities. If I just want to do a lot more organizations who invest in their team, who just want to bring some magic and really get their people unlocked, so I can't wait to grow that even more. I will write another book, probably around kindness. I'm tinkering with a couple at the moment, and I just don't know which I'm choosing. And eventually I want to do some documentaries, and I perhaps that'll have to wait until I build the sanctuaries. But nothing's off the table. I'm open to all possibilities, and I have learnt that you just keep your mind open and consider what comes in, what's placed in front of you, and maybe that's the thing to go with. And if there's a chance to pivot, you can always, my vision is to make a better world, and the vehicle I use to do that, it can be anything. So I might have my sights set on videography, and it might end up being teaching, and whatever it is, I'm still going to achieve that goal. I'm going to make a better world every day.
The thing is, Kerryn, that the more people we have investing in tackling climate change, tackling conservation of our animals across the planet, the more people we have tackling water issues in poorer nations, the more people we have tackling those problems, the better the world is going to be. It's not someone's already doing that, so I can't do it. Well, no one is doing it like you are going to do it. So no one can replicate Kerryn and Kerryn's approach, because there's a uniqueness that drives you forward, and there's a uniqueness in the solution that you provide to do that. Particularly where a conservation of our animals is occurring, if we don't do a lot of work in that particular area, we will continue to lose animals that we've lost forever. From my perspective, that's unthinkable, isn't it?
And it's not just unthinkable because it's absolutely, it's abhorrent, that we would do that, but it's people just don't get it. It's every single animal is on this earth for a reason. It's our ecosystem. We lose one,
absolutely,
we screw up the ecosystem. It harms
everything
us.
up.
It does. And when you talk about, just very quickly, I used to want to save the world, but it was when I realized that I had my jigsaw piece, and if I just focus on my piece and put it in, I'm adding to the big picture. And if everyone just takes their piece, puts it in,
little piece,
we're eventually going to build that puzzle, and we'll get a tipping point. It'll be.
Well, if you think of it this way, Kerryn, if you take a place like the Amazon, which has incredibly unique animals, fauna and flora, and
Yep.
some of the most dynamic, world-changing discoveries have been in that place and in that land. If we don't protect that, we might be depriving humanity of something that will save us in the future. So
Yep.
everyone, like you said, Kerryn, needs to take their unique passion and drive, use it as a jigsaw in the jigsaw of humanity, and do it anyway.
Yep.
Because each
Absolutely.
person, it'll take each person doing their unique job and following their unique passion to get it done. It's not going to be one person saves the world. It will be many people save our animals, act on climate change. Climate change in itself will impact generations, and we
Yep.
have to be working on that right now.
Yep.
Otherwise, our grandchildren won't inherit the same earth and planet that we've got now. It's important,
100%.
isn't it?
Yep. And we've got access to Zoom. We've got access to anybody in the world,
Yes.
you know, and like I do my stuff in Africa. Now, if you think you can't make a difference, I didn't go through, I don't have money. I don't have a degree. I don't have corporate backing, and all the money that from that, I have got no funding whatsoever. It all comes from friends on Facebook. I say, hey, I want to build a water tank. Who's in? And everybody pitches in, you know, and I think that we have to just understand that we have got so much power with this. We can connect with anybody. My sister raises money for a guy in Bali, and he buys supplies for homeless people and drives around to it. So you think you can't make a difference? That's rubbish. Everybody can do something.
Can make a difference, even if it's just a little difference. So the person that has the funding from Australia in Bali that provides for their poorer citizens, you don't know if that child that you're helping to feed will grow up to be president of Indonesia.
100%.
And because they've experienced the kindness, generosity from people, they know then how to show kindness and generosity to their people. You don't know what your little ripple effect will have on the world. Kerryn, I'm sure in the classrooms that Kerryn's had, or the work that Kerryn's done in Africa, there will be an amazing leader, a world-changing thought leader, an explorer. Any sort of thing can come out of just sticking to what you know you need to do and doing it anyway.
Yep, 100%. Yep.
It comes back to that power of saying yes. Feel it in your gut, feel it in your soul, and do it anyway. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Don't be afraid of failure and do it anyway, because look what can come out of that.
Yep. I have two sayings. If we can make a difference, why wouldn't we? And transformation happens when we begin. So start now, you know, just start, because it feels...
The just starting is the important bit. If you don't have to know what's out there, you don't have to have a big grand scheme, just start somewhere and start now, start today.
That's it.
Kerryn Vaughn, I'm just so privileged to have had you on the show today. It's a delight to have you live on Radio Toni Everyday Business and to chat with me and the audience about your wisdom and knowledge from your standpoint and what you've been through. All the best with Girls with Hammers. It's a fantastic and phenomenal project to be working on with a fantastic age bracket. I have to say, I'm biased. For people listening, don't forget to jump onto Kerryn's website and grab those books. The Get Off the Bench and sorry, it's gone from my head.
Magnificent Kids.
Magnificent Kids. I was going to say Magical Kids. That's not right. It's Magnificent Kids and Get Off the Bench. Jump on the websites and have a look and connect with Kerryn. She is a gorgeous, gorgeous human being. I've already made notes on my notes here today. I need to connect Kerryn with this person, this person, this person, this person, because that's the way the world works. If you think, if you're listening to someone and say, gosh, I'd like her to be introduced to certain, do it. Absolutely. Jump on an email and do those things. They're spirit-led, they're intuitive-led, and they change the world. Kerryn Vaughn, thank you so much for being on Radio Toni today. That, my wonderful listeners, is our lot again for this week. We will be back next week with another Everyday Business. I'm your host, Toni Lontas. The gorgeous Kerryn Vaughn, thank you so much. Bye for now, everyone.